Donnybrook is made possible by the support of the Betsy and Thomas Patterson Foundation and the members of 9PBS.
Hey, thank you so much for joining us for this edition of Donnybrook. Kind of cold and wet as of press time, so grab an umbrella, enjoy the program. As we introduce the panelists, starting with Wendy Wiese from the Big 550 KTRS, Bill McClellan from the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, Ray Hartmann from Substack, founder of Donnybrook and the Riverfront Times. And from the St. Louis American, we welcome Alvin Reid, sports columnist and news editor. And I do want to throw in a quick plug for our benefactor, or should I say our sponsor, Underwriter Design Air. The Brennans lost the furnace. It went kaput last weekend, and it was cold. But Design Air, proud sponsor of Donnybrook, came to the rescue. Yes. So, Ray, I want to ask you about a column that you wrote not only in Substack, but it's also appearing in the St. Louis Business Journal. It's in reaction to a study that came out this week by Good Jobs First and its executive director, Greg Leroy. They took a look at the tax breaks that have been issued in our region the past 6 years, and they found that the schools have lost $260 million to tax breaks, and the situation is worse, or at its worst, in the city of St. Louis, where per student, it's a $1,600 per year loss in school dollars. Those numbers are about 7 times what they are in Chicago and twice what they are in Kansas City. Right. What do you make of all this? What did you write?
Well, it's more important what Greg Leroy, who's really a bright guy, makes of it, which is that we, as he put it, we're off the charts compared to other cities. I heard from some real estate folks that quibble with the methodology and stuff, although keep in mind, these numbers came from a not-for-profit that all the districts have to report. They're called the Government Accounting Standards Board. So it wasn't, these are solid numbers. And what they showed, what Good Jobs First was able to show, is that poor people, black people, and disabled kids, their kids, are the ones who disproportionately pay. As Greg Leroy points out, for every dollar that a kid in a city pays, contributes in the form of their education dollars to corporate welfare, that it's 91 times what Rockwood does. So it's a pretty, you know, a lot of these...
But isn't that the fault of the leaders in the city, who are often minorities themselves, who are issuing these tax breaks to developers?
The city is the place. These kind of incentives should only be in places like the city, small towns that lose their factories, North County, some in South County, whatever, that are where they're struggling. The idea, there's a but-for test, as they call it, which is but for this incentive, the person wouldn't come here. They should not be in the Central West End. They should not be in the Central West Corridor where they all are. They should be given in places like North City, and they should not at all exist in Clayton and Chesterfield and all these other...
I just think North City, unless it's Bob Clark. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Well, no,
I think if you limit it, okay, to like, all right, this is what we're giving on any project, all right? This is the limit, and the limit, let's say, is what the limit is for a North County project. Then that helps the kids, like I say, in the city area, you know, some. I'm not saying you have to completely eliminate this unless it's in North St. Louis, but at the same time, just get control of it, because like you said, this is off the chart. Then two, I don't think it's really, I know that stands out. You take a Rockwood, take Webster, but whatever, and say like, well, they're only giving up so much. Well, I mean, there are no $800 million developments going up in Kirkwood or Webster because it's just too small and all that. And there are also not a lot of them at the same time. So I don't think that's a fair comparison, but that one to Chicago is a fair comparison.
Well, you know, the thing about the development is, like you take downtown St. Louis, which desperately needs some help, and investors and developers aren't going to go in there, Ray, without some kind of help. I mean,
I didn't say downtown. I'm talking about the places.
Well, when you talk about it's the poor kids in the city that suffer, it's the city that needs this help.
Yeah, but they're doing it in places that the market forces.
And here's why. I'll explain.
And they do not need to be subsidized in Central Western.
Let me explain. Jacob Barker from the Post-Dispatch 4 years ago explained all of this, why it's happening in St. Louis. Because unlike other cities, including those in our area, the St. Louis Development Corporation gets a percentage, or a 1.5% take of all subsidies.
Which is horrible.
So there's a perverse incentive.
Yes.
This doesn't happen elsewhere. Actually, the comptroller's office gets a percentage of every subsidy. So as a result, the officials are granting subsidies because that's the only way. Not only lines their pockets, it's the only way they make money, because the city doesn't fund the SLDC.
And let's be clear, they're not lining their personal pockets.
Even craziest,
the
craziest aspect of this, the craziest aspect was when the city actually subsidized the federal government to put the NGA in North St. Louis. The city was subsidizing Uncle Sam.
Well, I get that, though, because that's just one, you want to keep it, and then two, because it's very, very, very important in where it's located. Now, I'm not saying that all these deals are good, but that's one that maybe I could live with. Because of the magnitude.
But the city should not be saying to a developer, you can pay less to the schools. The schools should make that decision. If the city itself wants to say, hey, we're not going to take money for police or fire, that's one thing.
Well, that's the point,
to have,
I want to be clear.
Well, the argument is that, as Ray said, but for the incentive, what would there be? And, you know, if you have a vacant lot, the schools aren't going to get anything from that anyway, Charlie.
Bob Clark is, I mean, this was just a week ago, and it's still obviously echoing around the city, but Bob Clark is, to me, the exception. I mean, because he should, as you point out, in North St. Louis, then he should get whatever he desires, in my opinion.
Well, no, I don't know about that. But here's the deal. Well, first of all, you mentioned the city. You know, the city, by the way, had to be led to the NGA.
No, I mean, you know, it's like saying more money than you can imagine. Well, I can imagine quite a lot.
All right.
So that's
Charlie,
let's move on. Okay.
Not there.
Wendy, this week the St. Louis County Council had a meeting, and it was interrupted by pro-Palestinian protesters. And in her wisdom, the county chair just ended the meeting. I was surprised they didn't clear the hall and then continue. But what do you think about protests like the one that was held this past week at St. Louis County?
I don't, and I understand that this is part of being an American. This is part of, you know, you have a right to assemble, you have a right to protest, but this is a body that, you know, focuses more on Northwest Plaza than it does the West Bank. So I wish that the protesters, you're just being obstructionist for obstructionist's sake. I think you should go to Washington, D.C. If you want to affect change, you know, then put your money where your mouth is, buy a bus ticket, go to Washington. But the county council, you're just derailing the important business of the county. What's next? Going to the Rockwood School District and protesting there?
I agree with you, and I have to ask myself the hard question, because I'm on the wrong side for them. The Palestinian protesters, they basically took over a Board of Aldermen's meeting, but they were welcome there, so there wasn't any tension, and they did the same thing in the county. And I have to ask myself the hard question, being on the other side, would I feel the same way if it was pro-Israel demonstrators or whatever? And the answer is yes. This is not, it's one thing to make it, obviously everybody has a right to organize protests, but when you're talking off topic, when you're talking city, and it's not just St. Louis, they're doing it all over the country, you go to a city council meeting, if St. Louis was sending money to this, then fine. It's just, I'm sick of it.
I think you forget what it was like to be young. I mean, these kids.
Well, that I did.
You know, I mean, these kids, they're just protesting. I mean, they came from Wash U mostly.
These are our kids.
And, you know, they could argue, and I'm sure they would, that, well, it's American money that's funding the war on Gaza. And I'm on your side. I mean, I'm pro-Israel on this. But if these kids want to protest, and I thought it was really illuminating that the county council just stopped their meeting. They obviously had nothing to do. I mean, if there was some important county work, I'm sure they would have cleared the meeting or had somebody arrested. But instead, they just said, okay, well, if you guys are going to holler, we'll just go home ourselves.
But this is part of the pandemic bunkers.
There was a little bit of a rationale, and that is they were protesting the county executive subsidy of Boeing, which manufactures weapons, some of which have
well, that's fine. But I think, look, everybody is this is a very sensitive subject, obviously. But like going back to when, you know, the COVID and all that, and the craziness that was going on, I think that's what set the stage for this, because they didn't take control then. So now I think everybody out there says, like, okay, I got a point to make. I know where we're going.
Right.
So that's one thing. And then two, all right, we're going to let you holler and we're going to let you scream. We're going to let you holler and we're going to let you scream for 15 minutes. Now, once you go past that 15 minutes, all bets are off.
Not for now.
You have to play by that rule.
That's
okay,
right.
and I can live with that, and I think.
Well,
right.
let me ask you about disrupting in Jefferson City. There's now a Freedom Caucus that is kind of rocking the Republican boat in Jeff City in the Senate. Alvin, Reid. It's got Senators Eigel and Keogh, Hoskins, and Bratton, and because they were so disruptive, kind of preventing the Senate from doing its business last week. The head of the Senate decided to strip them of their offices, took away some of their office budget, and also the chairmanships that they held.
And parking.
Now, and their parking. Forgot about that. But most importantly, yeah, save the best for last.
Yeah.
So, okay. I think that because a lot of people love disruptors these days, whether it's in Silicon Valley, Washington, D.C., or Jeff City, I think their stock went up. What do you think?
Well, no, I don't, because they've just gone a little bit too far, because no business is getting done. We can't get a gambling bill passed. We can't get this passed. They're you know, trying to do child tax credit thing. Can't do any of that because they're off into this, you know, dream world that they're in. I found it funny, instead of wrapping themselves in freedom expression and all that, they wrapped themselves about, you're going to take money away from me and I might have to lay some people off. And you know, the guy did say, no, you don't have to lay anybody off. You just need to use some of your budget money to pay them. So the first thing they said, like, oh, this is going to cost us money, not cost us freedom or cost us our voice. This is going to cost me money. So good. You know what? This shenanigans has to stop. And I think they've gone a bridge too far. I think most Republicans side with them having their chairmanships taken away.
I will say this. I completely agree. Good for the Republican leadership to do the right thing. No question about it. But two things can be true at once. It is good for them, and politically it is gold for guys like Eigel and these other bottom feeders. And they all
What did he call them? Swamp creatures?
No, I said bottom feeders.
No, but
he
whatever. I don't mean to call them swamp. Here's the deal. Bill Eigel was outraged that the Republican governor, Mike Parson, would have a pleasant lunch or whatever it was with the Democratic governor of Kansas, in the state of Kansas, Laura Kelly. So that was like his idea. That's his idea of an issue. He talked about how they don't want to talk issues. These guys are so really such a threat to our democracy, the guys like Eigel, and he will use this, just like me saying something bad about it. Anything that can position him as against the establishment.
That's right.
Whether it's is gold for him.
And it probably
is. And he isn't for anything except grievance and
I remember when we had Senator Eigel on Next Up, and he was talking about ending property tax. And I said, well, you know, what will we replace that with? And he said, waste and fraud. I said, well, yeah, but this is mostly county government, and the Republicans control all the counties outside of St. Louis County. Is it fraud and waste there? And he said, fraud and waste. I mean, he's not a serious man, and I don't think that he has a chance for Senate. I mean, because
what we're saying is this might be a momentary, you know, windfall for him, but it's not going to go anywhere.
I hope not.
It could go.
In a three-way race, you don't know.
From Cory Bush to Josh Hawley to Donald Trump, people who get their names in the news seem to be elevated politically. Bill McClellan, I want to ask you about a study that came out this week, and it showed that the most expensive second market ticket in Major League Soccer is in St. Louis. Median price for buying a ticket secondhand is $303. To me, that just shows the popularity and the excitement surrounding this team. What do you think?
I think so, too. And I have not been to a soccer game, and I don't even know how to buy a ticket on the second market. But I don't find any fault with anybody on this. If they have produced a team that everybody's excited about enough so that people who've bought season tickets can sell them, good for them. I don't have a problem at all.
I just feel like when that price, be it what they may, secondhand market or whatever, I still feel like this is not established enough that this is not like when Alvin paid an exorbitant amount of money to see the Dallas Cowboys play at Arrowhead Stadium against the Kansas City Chiefs. And it was north of 303, but not that much. And so, like, I don't know. I think we're pricing out people that want to see the soccer game in St. Louis. And I'd just be wary of that. I know this is just year one and it's a shiny new toy, but I have some concern with that.
Well, this is America. We price people out. I mean, like if you have a great restaurant, you can charge enough.
Baseball.
But
But baseball, you can still, even when the Cardinals are really good, you can still buy a $25 ticket.
This is supply and demand capitalism, except when it comes to subsidizing the teams, and that goes for the Cardinals, the Blues. They were probably the worst. The Cardinals and Ballpark Village. You were talking earlier about subsidy, and now the soccer teams subsidized. And there was an article in the Business Journal today picking up on a national sports publication. Do you know they paid $200 million? You know what this, 5 years, less than 5 years, they got it in 2019, less than 5 years later. They've gone from $200 million in value to $625. The franchise is already more than triple in value, and I'm fine with that. It's free market capitalism.
Right.
But why are we subsidizing them?
And it goes for all the sports. The highway to accommodate Busch Stadium.
Well, that's different. I'm talking about actually subsidizing.
Well, I'm not in favor of subsidizing sport teams.
That's
but the soccer.
I love this.
Has been a very good thing for.
Oh, it's a great thing for St. Louis.
Brought life to the western edge of downtown.
Absolutely.
And I think,
Nobody questions it. Puts us on the map with the people that we're trying to, we want to see us on the map, and those are the young people.
Yeah, well, on a hot opening day of baseball season when a man named Stan Kroenke exercised his right to buy the Rams, if we had subsidized keeping that team here and building the stadium, they'd probably still be here. See, everybody picks and chooses what they want to get behind, but I'm like you. If the soccer team...
If we had built a stadium for Bill Bidwill, the Cardinals
was very good, actually.
You know what they were... Hey, do you know what they were asking?
Never going to stay.
You know what the asking price?
No, what was the asking price?
$70 million. That is like in the cushions of the couch of these days.
Wow, that's right.
Do you remember once when the Brewery wanted to build a hockey arena at Couples Station, and Mayor Vince Schamow in his wisdom said no, and they were going to pay for it out of their own pocket.
Yeah,
Bill McClellan, I want to ask you about, it was a different era, is true.
And this is wrong.
In St. Louis County, Sam Page, the county executive, hinted that he's going to have a property tax on the November 2024 ballot to raise some money for a new county administration building, which could cost as much as $612 million, although some people say you could renovate the existing one at about $200 million. What do you think?
Well, I think, he's welcome to put it on the ballot, and citizens will vote overwhelmingly against it. I mean, and I've read the stories. It's a fire problem. They don't have the right sprinklers. I think that Sam Page should just buy a bunch of fire extinguishers, take one to each office and say, spray this and get the heck out. I mean, I just don't, I think it's not a serious idea.
A serious idea. Now, this is why people buy.
Waste and fraud, Ray.
This is why people hire Reid McClellan. Buy fire extinguishers. That's why you get the big bucks.
$200 million.
Speaking, you sit there condemning serious ideas. I'm not a fan of Page, but I'm at least encouraged that, and I think you're right, that the voters are turning down, but if they want to at least, I'm for renovation of everything first anyway, but, if they want to at least have the guts to go to the voters on something like this, rather than circumvent the process, I keep beating the same drum, by giving incentives to developers so they avoid having to go through that process, and then the developers take the school's money. I don't mind, at least if it's a forthright.
He's got Rams money too. He's got $160 million Rams dollars.
That is something.
That's the problem.
I don't know that I'm convinced that the voters would vote it down. Everything that he touches.
This one only because that lump sum of money is there, and they wouldn't even have to use it all on that, just some of it. And I think people would say, like, no, I cannot vote myself a little bit of higher tax if you're not going to do anything with that money yet.
And there's no leadership on that money.
Okay. Ray Hartmann, I want to ask you about the Shoot 'em Up Shell, which is a gas station located at the corner of Convention and Tucker in downtown St. Louis. There's been a lot of crime there. You write about that this week. You call it actually a couple weeks ago, you call it the murder shell. But the city's thinking about taking away its license. Don't you think really maybe the city, because there are so few gas stations in downtown St. Louis, why don't they put a cruiser or two of police officers to watch it?
Respectfully, I think you got this. The city's defending the murder shell. It's Matt O'Leary and the downtown residents have sued the shell, and the city inexplicably is taking its defense. The Shell station there has been, as one person described it to me, an outdoor fentanyl market. It is a major magnet, and this is from the residents and the businesses. There's almost unanimity. They won the lawsuit because they are technically outside of the zoning. And if you put a common sense test to it, a lot of downtown business districts don't have gas stations. It's not Clayton doesn't have a gas station in its downtown district. You don't need it.
Well, it does have.
But I thought
that
the
BP on
Moto Mart.
Forsyth.
On Forsyth, I'm talking about in the downtown. Well, yeah, but I mean that's down.
Convenient.
That's outside of the downtown business. And my point is this:
but isn't that on the city,
it is
Ray?
a magnet. If people, and it's kind of consistent with what I've been saying before. You look at Kansas City, where they've got, I think, 25 times as many residents downtown. It's because they listen to the residents. The residents don't. We're not residents downtown. We don't want to listen.
We have a portal.
Okay, but now wait. So they close it down. Okay,
Yes.
and I hit the Powerball or something. So like, okay, I think the good people of this community need a store and a Motor Mart. Okay, so I'm going to do it, and then I'm going to hire a whole bunch of security, and I'm going to keep it safe. So what are we doing here? Are we trying to drive out the people that own it and get some new people? But you can't do that. So I'm going to say, I don't think the city has any choice but to say, like, no, we cannot drive any business out until we try to tame
the whole thing about making them close at 11, they can't sell beer. It's like, how did they get out of? How did they get the license out of zone anyhow? That was the city.
The point, the argument
40 years ago.
the argument they won before the judge is that they were out. They never had it zoned properly.
Right. That's
so
a 20-year-old issue.
And that's why the judge, to his credit,
Yeah, but here's the way I look at it.
Penalize the guy that's made the investment now.
No, the point is, if you're there illegally. The fact is, you are not protected by saying, well, gee, it's the city's fault.
But Ray,
it's a nuisance to people downtown.
That's a magnet to people who want to invest in the city.
I don't think it's the business's fault that people congregate. I mean,
yes, it is.
No, it's not.
They encourage it. That's one of the problems.
Who encourages
the
it?
business has been
well, the business wants people to come in and buy snacks.
Why did they hire security guards?
I'm taking up.
I think it's a deeper problem than the fact that
I'm
it's
arguing.
a gas station.
I'm not there. I'm arguing what the residents
The representative from Substack is following this thinking that was the Schnucks in South St. Louis, where they said, oh, you have crime outside, so Schnucks is at fault. Or the Kias are stolen, so it has to be the manufacturers.
Exactly.
It is. You're blaming for business for the crime
I'm telling you, the residents they have been fighting this fight.
No, but a lot of residents.
They have reports where
wait a minute. A lot of residents of Soulard don't want Mardi Gras down there. Hate it. Hate that 2 weeks.
This isn't Mardi Gras.
Okay.
This is
I'm just saying. But what I'm saying is, if a neighborhood can decide what goes and what comes, what's going to happen to the next one? It could happen someplace else.
If they operate and open a drug market, and their allegations.
But they're not selling the drugs.
Their allegations.
The neighbors are.
Their allegations are. I'm saying their allegations are that the owners of the operators of the station have, let's say, discouraged people from making 911 calls when they have.
Okay, but real quick.
That's their allegation.
I used to walk past there almost every night because there's the Post Dispatch, the gas station, and the Missouri Grill where people would go and have a drink. And Ray, there would be people congregating, but we didn't have that problem downtown.
I know.
Downtown is a mess right now, and I don't think you stop it by saying, well, we're going to just start shutting down businesses.
No, it's that business
Because of the
this is
criminal
the
element.
one that they made the case that this is a business outside its zoning.
But you know what?
And,
I will
and
say,
it
Ray,
is, there's nobody questions that the
I think business people, and I used to be
die.
one, I used to
Was
fill up
that like
there
12
years ago.
years?
I used to fill up at that station, not every day, but I think tourists would like to go there too. And
tourists would like to go there. That would be a really nice thing to do for tourists when they've had how many murders
well,
there in the
that's
last
why I
few
say
years?
put
That's
a
great.
police cruiser in front of the place.
They don't have police cruisers. That's you're making a case for why you need to close it. It is an
There's no police, so let's close the businesses in downtown.
Exactly. I got to tell you something. It'd really be smart
that'll
to
be great.
send tourists.
All right, we got to wrap
That'd be
it up.
a great thing to send tourists.
Thank you, Ray. It's now time to find out what folks had to say about last week's program. Let's go to the old mailbag. From the way folks on the panel talk, I personally would conclude that none of them has set foot in a rec center. Excuse me. 12th and Park would be a good place to start, probably closest to the 9 PBS studios. A good portion of the Rams money should be used to provide more youth centers like this one. That from Dale M. Cannon. The city's turning down Bob Clark's development project in North City. That's insanity. This idea that retail has to be what comes to North City is a pipe dream. That from Michael Szerzinski of St. Louis City. Daniel Hall of Hawk Point, Missouri wrote, these single-digit temps have frosted brains of the entire Donnybrook panel. With Biden administration inflation, higher gasoline, grocery service, and retail prices, people are not going to add another household cost by buying an Amazon package to watch Cardinal baseball. You people are out of touch. You can write us care of 9 PBS 3655 Olive Street, St. Louis, Missouri 63108. And those emails, donnybrook@9pbs.org. On social media, use hashtag DonnybrookSTL. Call the 9 line 314-512-9094 and do what I did last week in Arizona. Listen to us on the special podcasts of your choice. Apple, Spotify, TuneIn, and Google Play. Thanks so much for joining us. Hope you're staying dry. And don't forget, Donny Bash is in April. You can go to 9pbs.org/Donnybrook for those tickets. Thanks so much. See you next week at this time.
Donnybrook is made possible by the support of the Betsy and Thomas Patterson Foundation and the members of 9 PBS.